This is one of those ships where even just the silhouette creates a sense of foreboding purpose. It's industrial, functional, and not to mention gargantuan. But followers of Star Citizen will know the primary gameplay loop for the Reclaimer, Salvage, isn't really in the game as yet, despite this ship being available in-game for over 4 years at time of recording. So, all of that prompts the question, is the in-game performance of the Reclaimer worth considering? I'm Forrester, and in this video we'll explore the answer to that question by reviewing the currently flyable Aegis Reclaimer, which is described as a heavy salvage ship. If you've seen other reviews on this channel, then you probably know what to expect, with this video following the usual format. It's split into 5 sections, starting with a ship tour, assessing combat performance, reviewing handling and visibility, looking at the operating costs before finally summarising. As always, I've included timestamps in the video description in case you want to skip ahead. And if you're one of the 3/4 of people watching who isn't yet subscribed to the channel, you might consider it, so you can be notified of future Star Citizen videos as they go live. The tour for the Reclaimer will take around 7 minutes to get through, so if you're just looking for my thoughts on the ship, feel free to skip ahead to the combat section. There are a few different entry points into the Reclaimer. For the purposes of this tour, we'll start by entering into the elevator on the right or starboard side of the ship, which takes you up into the bridge deck. The elevator is not the most welcoming, it certainly fits in with the industrial theme, but you might feel safer on some other ships. The elevator opens up into the rear of the bridge deck. At the back is the highly visible shredding area with an engineer's station available. There's an elevator up to the main deck, as well as 4 crew stations. 2 of these are for remote turrets and 2 as scanning stations. There are 2 escape pods which don't currently work in the game. And then moving forward, we have 2 additional stations. These are marked as tractor beam operator stations. And then right at the front in the cockpit, there is a pilot's chair on the left and the claw operator's chair on the right. As we move back through the ship, we'll move up to the next deck, which is the main or habitation deck. There is the elevator, which we discussed before, but there's also this handy ladder, which is often quicker. At the top of the ladder, we're greeted with the familiar glow of the gravity generator. Moving through the habitation deck, the Aegis styling of the corridors is clear, and there's another ladder which takes you up to the top level. This room is purely for the manned turret at the top at the front of the ship. This is the elevator which goes up and down to the bridge. In the centre at the front of this deck is the drone operator area. There are 2 chairs for drone operators, as well as a door which grants access to the drone room. The padded corridors as we move through the ship really give this away as an Aegis Dynamics ship. On the left or port side, there's a small room which contains servers and equipment. and on the right or starboard side are additional escape pods. Just like the two on the bridge deck, these don't currently operate in-game. As we move further back through the ship on this habitation deck, we get to the mess. This space has a really nice, functional but not too fancy feel to it, and there is a window which looks out to the side of the ship. On the left or starboard side of the ship and next to this mess deck, there's also access to the docking collar. This opens up a docking port on the top of the Reclaimer. Moving further back, we have the captain's quarters and the crew quarters. The crew quarters is on the left or starboard side of the ship. There is a nice window which looks to the outside, as well as 4 bunks for crew to use. There's also a bathroom area. Over the 4 stalls in the bathroom, the left 2 are the showers and the right 2 are the toilets. Across the corridor on the right or starboard side is the captain's quarters. It's a little fancier with a nice desk and a chair, and has the same sort of window as appears in the crew quarters. In place of that large bathroom is a small bunk room for the captain, and a much smaller bathroom with a shower and toilet. Moving further back, we get access to the main elevator. There is an airlock on either side of the ship, and these are mirrored on each side. I'd love to show you the main elevator, but it doesn't currently work in the game, so we'll take the ladder down to the subdeck. This is the engineering section of the Reclaimer. Both of those ladders lead to the same place, and all the way down at the end is an engineer's station, as well as quite a cool looking set of gizmos. Heading back up those mirrored ladders, we'll head back to the main elevator. The places this will lead to include leaving the ship, a salvage balcony at the top, salvage processing, salvage hold, and a cargo hold. The armament of the Reclaimer takes a little work to describe. The primary turret is a size 5 manned turret at the top and at the front, which is armed with 2 size 5 weapons, by default Galdarine laser repeaters. Then there are 2 remote turret seats, giving various access to a suite of 6 different remote turrets, all armed with dual size 3 Panther repeaters. There's one on the top, one on the bottom, and then 2 at the front and 2 at the back, port and starboard. That's actually quite a confusing suite of weapons, not least because it's not currently possible to man all of the remote turrets at the same time. The main firepower is on the top manned turret, which thankfully is the easiest to use effectively. Out with that, if you do have remote turret gunners, unless they have an incredible awareness of precisely what turrets are where and where the enemy is, they're probably best off going in the top and bottom turret for most engagements. That said, in the future, it's quite possible that the extensive coverage will become an advantage in reducing the angles from which it's possible to engage the Reclaimer. Defensively, the Reclaimer is an absolute tank. Not only does the hull feel like it has infinite hit points, which it technically doesn't, but the triple size 3 shield generators make this one of the beefiest ships in-game at the moment. Realistically, all of that means the Reclaimer's combat performance is more defensive than offensive, and while it's possible to complete many of the combat contracts in-game, it's not the optimal experience. Visibility for the Reclaimer is probably described as not as awful as you might expect for a ship of this size. The cockpit is placed right at the front of the ship, which is a helpful position, although it is fairly high up. There are a few metal struts that partially obstruct the pilot's view, but realistically, since this is a ship you wouldn't expect to be travelling fast, that's not the worst. In terms of handling, the Reclaimer is a massive heavy ship and handles accordingly. It's sluggish, slow to move, slow to turn, and it's really important to use the VTOL thrusters in atmosphere. That's because the ship is incredibly heavy, and without the thrusters will simply fall out of the sky to the planet below. That also means that it's slow to leave atmosphere, so you really want to avoid horizon. But then this is supposed to be a heavy industrial ship, so it feels pretty much like you think it should. That said, the quantum drive is probably worth upgrading, as the stock Kama is a little on the slow side. Refuel costs depend very much on what you've been doing. If you use a lot of hydrogen fuel or a lot of quantum fuel, they can stack up pretty quickly, which encourages you to avoid flying too much in atmosphere. So the main purpose of the Reclaimer, salvage, isn't a gameplay loop at time of recording, but in future you might expect that to be the primary money-making activity for this ship. That said, with 180 SCU of cargo storage, it's possible to turn a small profit trading, although the sluggishness of the ship makes it a less than ideal experience. And likewise, the heavy turret up top makes combat contracts possible, but also a loop that there would be better choices of ship for, especially considering you probably need a sizable crew to share profits with. In terms of loadout changes, you might swap out the Kama quantum drive for a TS2 and perhaps upgrade the shield generators to big FR86 generators. Other than that, there probably isn't much else to upgrade. It also carries a very powerful set of lights up front. So at the risk of labouring the point, there currently is no salvage in-game for the Reclaimer. Supposedly we may see it at some point in the medium-term future, but until then, this ship is relegated to a bit of a niche, almost meme-like scenario. By that I mean I've seen a Reclaimer at the Xenothreat event shooting at capital ships, but it really didn't look at home doing that. It's really easy to get lost inside, a little like the Starfarer, so this is a ship that you'll need to learn your way around to get about. In addition, that inside carries a unique design mix of industrial and downright spooky, such that you might be forgiven for looking behind you as you walk around. And one of the most intriguing features, the big claw at the front, currently doesn't work, which many players might find disappointing. It's slow, sluggish, and hard to fly. It's also so big that it doesn't dock or land everywhere, so you'll need to be mindful of your destination and whether it accommodates the ship. And yet, it can do some things. Combat-wise, the shields and turrets are heavy enough that the Reclaimer can put up a fair fight, albeit there are better choices. And with 180 SCU of cargo storage, it can do a decent job with trading, albeit there are better choices. All of which brings us to price. At $350 to $400 out of game, or 15 million Alpha UEC in game, the Reclaimer is a big, expensive ship. Right now, sadly, it's not really worth it, since there are cheaper ships that you can buy that do what the Reclaimer currently does, but better. That's not to say maybe in the future salvage might make it all worthwhile, but until we see what that looks like, it'll be a gamble that it delivers the gameplay that you would hope for that price tag. That said, this was a hotly requested ship for me to review, so I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. Have I been unfair on this lethargic Leviathan, or do you agree with my challenges? And once again, if you're not yet subscribed, you really might consider it if you got this far, as I have a few more Star Citizen ship reviews you can expect over the coming months. It would also be really helpful if you would press that like or dislike button to guide me as to what videos you're enjoying the most, so I can tailor them to you. Otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.